So, welcome everybody. We're going to have a wonderful session today about trifix or TriType, which is a very controversial subject in Stan. But we're going to get into why we love it, why we work with it, a bit of what it is for people who are new to it, and hopefully by the end of today, you'll get a sense of how it's pragmatically useful in application. We're not making metaphysical claims about whether or not it's really real. And I don't really find that too relevant, really. And we're not trying to convert you to the concept or the use of it, but maybe you're curious. And that's what our conversation today is for. So I just want to introduce Rob and Sam, who are my partners in crime and in virtue. And I don't know if you guys want to introduce your work briefly. Probably people know you if they've been watching our work. But yeah, introduce yourselves.
Do you want to go first,
Me
Sam?
too. I knew you were going to say that. Yes, okay. So my project is called The Soul Shed, and my engagement with Enneagram is very connected with Trifix, which, as Ingrid is suggesting, I don't make metaphysical claims for either, but see it as very powerfully archetypal and metaphorical in the way that it can create territory, space, scope for us to engage with inner work, and particularly in time and space with imagery and in nature. So I guess that's my little summing up of the Soul Shed, Enneagram, and Trifix.
Beautiful. Thanks, Sam. Rob?
Thanks. Yeah. Hi, I'm Rob Hutchinson. I am an authenticity coach who works with the Enneagram. And yeah, when I came across TriType, it landed with my experience of working with clients. And that's why I really work with it, because I find it incredibly helpful um, in helping clients work with their different centers. And we'll be talking about the centers obviously today in the session. And it comes up, and I find it. Do I use it explicitly with clients a lot? Probably not, but I use it a lot implicitly, and it's really helpful for me as a coach to notice and to understand if I know a client's a TriType, what's coming up for them.
Thank you.
What about
Yeah.
at TACDEA, Ingrid?
Yeah, Takdir. So I do a lot of things with the Enneagram couples work and corporate facilitation and individual coaching, supervision. But I have the trifix in the back of my mind with everything I do. I talk a little bit about my use of it and application. I first came across it through Catherine Forth, quickly found out about Echazo's trifix work. And watching the videos that Catherine Forth used to have on YouTube on each TriType, I was quite blown away by the recognizability of the different TriTypes and how one different center fix in somebody strongly affects the presentation of their main type. So having worked with 837s, it's like, okay, cool, I'm getting to know that person, their way of being. Then I meet an 836, totally different human being. So that was what first made me see there's some real validity. And I've got other reasons. Let's go into some of the slides, and that'll come out along the way of how is this useful and what difference does a difference in the trifix make. And the reason why I've really grown to like it is because every other coach that I know is using it. And in a similar way to you, as you say, Rob, I'm sure Sam, for you as well, but it's the sense of when you're working with someone their archetypal struggle is maybe very two-ish, even though they're innate. And you're working with two themes and archetypes, even though their main type is an 8. In my case, 794, I found that for quite a long time I was working with 9 stuff. And it's been incredibly helpful for me to notice, geez, I'm in a 4 hole. And sometimes that's just a much more valid place to be working. So yeah, let's have a look. I've got some slides and we can just, all three of us, talk about what we're seeing. And yeah, just to remind people what this is, we're having Takdir Dialogos conversations, which is dialogos being about how our words transform each other and how conversations are so generative of new experiences in each other, in ourselves. And we're creating a community here that is collaborative and mutually informing from very different perspectives. So Rob, with a deep background in Egyptian symbology, Sam with a background in the arts, me drawing on cognitive science and comparative religion. So bringing in different perspectives. So the first thing I'd like to do is invite you to look at these level 1 descriptions of the behavior and attitude of each of the different types. And just to have a look at your own type, and just to find a word there that you know you've had an experience of, even if just for a moment in your life. And to drop into the memory of that experience and what it felt like. And just arriving here in this moment and recognizing that that re-anchoring in that experience brings it on. And then I invite you to look in one of the other centers and just choose one that you feel some affinity for. If you don't know your TriType for sure, just choose one that feels relatable and do the same thing. Just noticing a word that feels resonant. Taking yourself back to a time when you felt that. When you experienced yourself living that word in your behavior, seeing the world through that attitude. And just notice the experience that arises in you when you put yourself in that state intentionally. You might notice your nervous system settling. You might notice a sense of self-reconnection. You might notice a sense of grief that you haven't felt that for a long time, and that's also fine. Because these level 1 states are a North Star. They're not ways of punishing ourselves. They just don't forget that you have the potential to experience this more of the time. So maybe you want to write down the word that you chose for your main type and the word that you've just chosen for the other type. Just notice you might experience a change in your breathing as you experience this word, and remind yourself of what it feels like to be in that state. And now go to the third center and choose one there. Again, it doesn't need to be, oh, I know for sure I've got a 2 or 3 or 4, whichever center you're in. Just glance over, and if there's one that stands out to you, just engage with it for a moment. And again, taking yourself to a moment when you've been in the state that accompanies that behavior or attitude. What are the feelings? And now what I invite you to do is to take whatever word you chose for the blue, which is the mental center, and right next to it, mental center, whatever one you chose for the green, and right next to it, heart center, and then whatever one you wrote for the orangey red, the gut center, the body center, just right next to it, either movement center, gut center, action center, body center, whichever of those words resonate for you or that you're familiar with. Okay, so you've got the blue is the mental, the green is the heart, and the orangey red is the gut, movement or action. And now what we can do is just do a kind of alignment and integration practice or exercise. Is to activate in your mental center the quality that you wrote for the mental center. Get your mind into that state. Then for the green, put your heart in that state and connect them. And now bring in the state of the gut center word that you chose and activate that. Maybe you can say those 3 words to yourself. Blue word, green word, red word. You can touch that part of you as you say it. Activate the mental word. Put your hand on your heart, activate the heart word. And it'll match the mind word in your feelings. And then put your hand on your gut and activate the gut center state. And now just forgetting the words, but noticing the state. Just connecting those 3 centers in their state, in their quality. Don't need to think about the words at all. Just notice the state that you've activated. And just let your posture match that state. You might feel taller. You might feel more relaxed. Or you might feel more awake and alive and vital. You might feel more open. Just letting your posture and your breathing match the state. Allow yourself to just enjoy that state. And holding on to that state and knowing that you can, allow yourself to gently come back into our shared space together and to connect across space and time in our space of learning and discovery. And just know that anytime you can take yourself back to that three-centered integrated state, and know that you can come back if you want to take a screenshot maybe, that you can return to this exercise and try out some of the other qualities and words, because it's not fixed. So that gives you a little taste of what it's like to work with the trifix, and to know that we have these qualities in each of our centers. When we are awake, when we remember ourselves, when we connect with the heart, and when we feel our agency, autonomy, and aliveness, which are the key qualities of each of the centers. And we have all three centers. But let's go on. One thing I want to just comment on is that these are embodied, fully embodied things. They're not abstract at all. That we have a mental center in here working, awareness, rays of illumination that we can place. We can place our awareness on the soles of our feet. We can place our awareness on our breathing. We can place our awareness in a kind of soft focus way on the people in the room. We can choose our awareness. That's the mental center. In the heart center, we've all got a heart. And it's the cardiac brain, the nerves in our heart that respond to people in situations. And we've all got a gut center in our literal gut called the enteric brain. And just to know that a lot of the nervous system communication inside us is bottom up. So it's not, according to some of the cognitive theory, we see something, we interpret it, and it causes a response. That's been proven wrong in the neuroscience and the physiology, especially in the trauma research, that our whole being and our senses and our bodies, our autonomic nervous system, is responding all the time in an unconscious way at a tacit level. It feeds information up to our psyche, and then our brain makes sense of that afterwards. Its story follows state, not the other way around. So that's something to be aware of, and being able to pay attention to the intelligence of our centers helps us to have an integrated, embodied, embedded awareness that is non-resistant. So I'm going to stop there. I see that as a little intro to set the scene. And now I want to just invite whatever's arising for my compatriots here. From your experience, if you want me to stop the share, please say so. I'd love to hear your experiences, whether it's clients, yourself, anything. Doesn't have to be even in response to anything I said. So maybe Sam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that practice at the beginning, and I was just reflecting on the second slide as well, and thinking, although we place these centers with three types, And, you know, as a 6, for example, my brain does tend to be where a lot of my fixation, a lot of my challenges play out. It's not to say that, you know, because I'm a head type, that I don't have access to heart or gut. And so I found that was really illuminated for me in the first exercise, because the words that I chose weren't necessarily words that went with the center that the type belonged in. So, for example, um, in my type, in my 6, I chose grounded, which feels
Oh,
more like a body word. But
beautiful.
but actually, when my 6 feels healthiest, it's when I feel grounded. And that actually pulls my head energy right down and roots it. And the opportunity to kind of invite that state in, you're absolutely right. It started to alter my state. My breathing started to flow differently. It deepened, it lengthened, and I was reminded that that grounding is always available to me, and that it offers me different kinds of thoughts when I'm there. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a beautiful insight.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's really lovely. So we could actually look in our main type and say, find one that feels more body-based. That might be interesting as well. But I also had an experience of that. Like I saw that the one I chose for the heart in the um in the 4, life enhancing, and then when I looked at the 9, it was exuberant, and that's quite a 7-ish thing as well, but it's a genuine exuberance. It's like a grounded, settled sense of grateful exuberance and joy. And yeah, so I had a similar, in a way, like the type contains other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Rob, is there anything on either slide, or should I take the slides away for what you want to say?
Probably if you go to the center slide, that would be good. Because yeah, that was a really nice practice and what I love about TriType is it's a constant reminder that we're not just one type, and we've got all of the types, all of the patterns within us, and we've got the centers, as you say. Um, and and yeah, the sooner we come into Enneagram, and it's all very fascinating. We've got a type, and it's curiously accurate. But the sooner that we can get out of type, I think the better. And a great way out of type is through trifix, and a great way out of type is through the centers. So I liked what you were saying there about starting to bring those qualities out of type, because what you were saying there, you're right. If a 7 looks at exuberance in 9, then that could be a type 7 style exuberance, which is not actually what it's talking about at 9. So yeah, we as soon as we can kind of start to recognize our own pattern, our dominant pattern, and also be aware of, well, what does that other word mean within my pattern? Am
Yeah.
I overlaying with that with a bias from my own pattern, or does it have something to offer me that helps me away from restriction in my own pattern? So I love this kind of sort of expanding the Enneagram out,
Mm.
and that's what I do with clients, and in my own personal work as well.
Mm.
Trying to kind of like move away. I identify dominant type 9. Um, what do those other qualities look like, and what can they bring to me?
Mm.
Not necessarily through a 9 perspective.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, that's like people that are very critical of these models, especially if they're seen as static, say one of the better ways we can use a system like the Enneagram or model like the Enneagram is to see the types as modulators, like they're things to help us think about something and reflect on something. Like, okay, let me reflect on what exuberance means in the body. Okay. It's not some chaotic, fragmented, oh, I've got to do this course and I've got to go to Turkey. It's like, oh, what does it feel like in the gut when I feel a sense of exuberance paired with appreciation and paired with a sense of something life-enhancing? It's like it helps us to find our way, to feel our way into that state, and it helps us to remember that there's alignment. And the whole purpose of the Enneagram is three-centered awakening, integration, and alignment, so that there is a posture that goes with appreciative. And I can go looking for it in the 9 qualities, not because that's the doctrine, but because the Enneagram's helping me to reflect on that. So it's this, using the Enneagram as a modulator to explore archetypes. And I also find, for me, like the big thing that I find with clients that's so helpful is when I don't know their type and I'm noticing lots of patterns that it helps me sift out. Is like I'm seeing this anxious hyper-perfectionism and need for control and being so triggered by, potentially doing something wrong, and then worry, and then not being able to say no. I'm starting to think, okay, triple compliance. There's 612 going on here. And I'm not going to worry too much about which one is the main type, because there's an aggregate of compliance themes here. And this person is suffering in a particular way. And they're suffering because of their way of thinking. They're suffering because of their way of relating to people. And they're suffering because they get so freaked out about the literal world of, is this the exact methodology for statistical analysis? And this person doesn't know, like really getting nitpicky about things. And me saying, okay, there's a whole thing going on here. There's a gestalt. There's a whole gestalt of suffering. And then knowing, okay, how are we going to find a way in here that's going to ease the suffering? So the mental things to focus on as, okay, let your mind do this, shrink the problem down from being a mountain to like, actually, it's a little speck of dust. This isn't going to break the whole organization. What about in your heart? Let's look at the relationships that you've got. Let's look at the way that people respond to you. Let's look at, issues of confidence and worth. And then in the gut center style, what can you do physiologically to self-regulate and to step back and breathe? Like when things are out of control and someone's got a dumb idea, can you just push it to the horizon and establish a bit of a window of tolerance at a body level to ground yourself in your body on the soles of your feet, being where your feet are, and seeing that the obstacle is the path. This is fine. And when I'm in being and presence, like in the law of 3, I can actually hold all of this and know that there are many options available to me in right action terms, So that's some of the value I find, that I don't have to get fixated on trying to find out what the client's vice is. Like I've got to nail their main type. I can work with them, and maybe after 6 sessions I can say, I work with this model, and how it talks about this particular archetypal struggle is in terms of this. And they say, yes, exactly. And if they seem curious and they want to know more, then I introduce the Enneagram. let them explore it. They read the report. They say, oh my God, I hate that thing. It's so accurate. I want to be sick. And then we say, yeah, well, they're ways, they're keys. So I find that particularly helpful is once you've already got a sense of the gestalt of the suffering, to say there are various ways of working with the different elements in the gestalt. So I don't know what your sense is. Maybe we can come back to you, Sam. I don't know. I don't know if anything like that resonates for you, or if you've got something else from your space.
Yeah, no, it does. It completely resonates for me. I'm thinking how when I'm in fixation, when all of my parts are kind of pitted against each other, and I'm in a real scramble, real thrashing about sort of territory, my attention becomes very sort of funneled into sort of a myopic, it's all about this, and there's one way, and the path becomes very, very, very narrow. And then at the other end, where what Rob was describing, there's this immense freedom to kind of walk around the Enneagram and be open to all these myriad perspectives and possibilities. What if I looked at this more like a 7? Or what if I hopped over and saw this from a 9 point of view? And then the imagination is kind of freed up because the nervous system's relaxed, and there's the possibility of imagining into bigger spaces and openings, and it's not the bottom end of the funnel. It's like it's popping out of the funnel into the expansive.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that what you were describing, this body work, this foundational coming back into body and ground and space and the real, has to happen first, so that there's a sense of where I actually am now, in order to settle the system, to breathe into the now, to breathe into maybe some sort of deeper sense of being settled and safe. And I don't mean that just from a 6 point of view. I think just, ontologically, kind of somatically, or that all of that experientially safe in the actual, like I'm sitting on this chair now, this threat isn't actually coming at me, and then the thing starts to look different. And the things I offer in my spaces tend to be very much about sort of getting into that kind of a state of safety, where then a bit of play, a bit of creativity, a bit of imagination can come online, and those parts become accessible in a way that they're not when the threat system is activated.
And the neuroscience is 100% behind that. It's like in the polyvagal theory, when we are in the state, the ventral vagal state, that's when we're able to play. And we can't play when we're constricted and anxious, because we're not safe to let go. We can't be spontaneous. We can't be creative. We are just scanning for threats. And yeah, so I love that. Yeah, the nervous system safety. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, Rob, what's coming up for you?
I was just going to pick up on what you were saying about double or triple patterns, and I think that's one of the areas where TriFix really comes into its own. Is if you're seeing a triple pattern in a client, that is as important as their dominant type. Also, my experience of it is it's also a time when you might see a client presenting in a way that you don't think is aligned with their type. They don't look like their type. It'll often be because there's a double or especially a triple pattern.
Yeah.
And there are lots of triple patterns in the Enneagram, obviously. There's this
Yeah.
there are the Hornevians, there's the harmonics, etc. And there are looky-likey types as well. So
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, where you've got a triple pattern, that's where I've noticed from my own experience with clients is that there's some major work to be done there because they're so
Absolutely.
reliant on one strategy.
Exactly.
You know, if that's an assertive or a compliant or I don't like the word withdrawn, but I use the word autonomous rather than withdrawn.
Okay.
But yeah, if you've got a triple autonomous pattern, that person wants to
Disconnect.
step aside
Yeah.
as a mode of engagement often. But it's engaging, it's stepping back to engage before moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that the work is to be done in offering alternative strategies, especially where there's a triple fix.
Absolutely. That for me, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm always on the lookout for a triple compliance or whatever, if it's Hornevians, harmonics, whatever it is, like triple frustration, 147. That is a thing. And triple assertive, 837. Triple attachment, 936. So whether it's Hornevians or harmonics, or object relations, to really notice, okay, we're dealing with a thing like triple competence. You know, if you've got a self-praise 135, you're dealing with self-praise 1, self-praise 3, self-praise 5. So that's something that I really love to notice. I've got a slide about that in this presentation. Let me find it. Let me just see. Here's a triple compliance. I spoke about someone there. They've got here a 1 is a compliance type, 2 is a compliance type, 6 is a compliance type. So you're really dealing with a certain strategy there, and they compound each other, and also they tell you a lot about the childhood patterns. Why did this person need to be compliant? Why were they scared of getting into trouble? Why did they have a need to create order and structure and control? Why were they worried about what would happen if they didn't do that and make everyone else happy, you know, as in the case of 2? So really tapping into that is incredibly helpful. And then also what I find, this is a poster on the TriTypes, but I mean on the subtypes. So there are 27 subtypes. You can't see the detail here. What I want to point out is I've highlighted the subtypes in a different color. So what I find is also really to be conscious of, say someone is self-praise 2, 6, 8. They've got a counter type for the 2. Then they've got a pretty stereotypical 6 head center, and they've got a stereotypical 8. So the instinct carries through within the TriType. I think that's something really important, that you see the self-praise manifestation, head, heart, gut. So you look specifically for your guidance in the intervention within the subtypes. And you also look at the lines within the subtype. That's a whole different topic. But for me, say SX7, SX9, SX4, to be able to notice, like my SX4 is in overdrive. I am in the most hateful envy because someone got something amazing and I'm struggling with something they find easy, whatever it is. But to be able to notice which one is cooking and at a subtype level, that's something that I've found very, very helpful as well. And then, yeah, so anything else you want to add there, Rob, just amplifying what you're saying?
Yeah, I was just going to add, there's obviously a lot of complexity there, and actually, you know, working with clients stepping back from the theory, the
Oh,
complexity.
yeah.
Like as a client, we're as a coach, we're bearing all of that in mind, but
Mm,
you know, you don't need to go near any of this with the client other
exactly.
than
They don't. Yeah.
voice of coaching and questioning.
400%. I don't put that stuff in the room. And I see it as creating a barrier between myself and the client. So, yeah. Sam, I know we're coming to the end of the time together, just as a very brief introduction. So I want to hand over to you and see if you want to sum up for us and maybe give us something to reflect on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've got a little practice to offer. And I think it fits here in terms of maybe bridging a little bit around trifix of identification, but also approaching trifix as a resource, which in a way is what you invited us to do at the beginning, Ingrid, by choosing a word that was an opening for us. It was something attractive because it was coming from the end of virtue, the end of holy idea, the sort of the spacious end. And I think that can be really powerful in intuitive creative practice as well. It can be a way that Enneagram can feed into, a creative journey. So I wanted to just share a little one of those, if that's all right. Can I share? Can I screen share?
Yeah, let me
Okay.
give you
So
co-hosting rights. 1 second. Okay, there we go.
thank you. Okay, so please have your journals at the ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go over to here. Okay, so the invitation here is to, similarly to as we did at the beginning, but to choose a square from each row. And you may want to be looking to where you identify, but if you would like to, the other invitation is to treat it as what you could really do with a bit more of today. You've checked in with yourself, you kind of know where you're at as a result of being in the session and being in your embodied space. What would you like a bit more of today? And so I'd like to invite you to choose a square from each row, which in a way is going to create a trifix that you would like to sort of try on a little bit. So see where that takes you. And as you choose, just check them out with yourself. See how each one kind of feels. Which one maybe feels like it's got a little bit of sort of maybe sparkly, appealing energy about it for you today. Or maybe conversely, it's something that settles your system in a way that feels really appealing. So just go with where you're drawn. If you're feeling a bit sluggish, the idea of being a little bit woken up might appeal. If you're feeling a bit up here, something settling might be where this takes you. But when you have those 3 sets of words, give me a little sign. Okay. And so now give them their code, which would be if from the first line, 8, 1, or 2. From the second line, sorry, 8, 9, or 1. Apologies. 8, 9, or 1 on the top line. 2, 3, or 4 from the second line. 5, 6, or 7 from the third line. And then that 3 number is the trifix for this. And then I'm going to offer you an archetype. That's okay. So have a look now at these, and you'll see some of these are similar to Catherine Fove's archetypes, but some of them are just a little different, and take things just slightly into a slightly different direction. But see what you have chosen. And then I'd just like to invite you to just almost free associate within that for a moment, so that you're having a little internal conversation with that archetype. So if you, for example, picked the Seeker 946, ask the Seeker just to tell them a little bit about themselves. You know, who are you, Seeker? And see if the Seeker has just got something to say by way of introducing themselves to you. And as they introduce themselves to you, notice what they're saying, but also notice how they're appearing to you. What does this archetype look like to you? What is their stature? What is their embodied presence like? What are they wearing? How are they appearing? Are they human? Are they animal? Are they another organism? Are they something else entirely? Just notice those qualities, those traits that's making it exist for you in your imagination, without any judgment or this is how it's supposed to be. Just see what's arising. And then just ask a final question. Is there anything you would like to say to me, to that archetype, and let it reply. Just a sentence of what it wants to say to you today. And if you're watching this on a recording, you might just like to pause this for a moment and take your time on this. But for us now, I'm going to hop out of the share and just ask if there's anything that you would like to say, Ingrid or Rob, that just would maybe land that a little bit for anyone who's watching.
So I've got the justice fighter for today. That's the energy that's coming through for me, the 836.
The 836.
Which is it's a very energetic, action-oriented, go for it, do it energy for today. So it's inviting me into action and into energized action.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Be interested to hear how that goes.
Yeah.
So cool.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about you, Ingrid?
Well, I just want to say I absolutely loved that exercise. I found it so nourishing and liberating and wonderful. I'm just really, really grateful for the exercise, and I want to go back to the map you created of how to find access to these other qualities. So mine, I was quite surprised, came out 825, which is triple rejection, but it's also what is the opposite of rejection? Is huge heart and fully connected. And that's what I was drawn to about it, is this this generosity and open-heartedness, but from a place of being deeply settled. So it's like introverted and detached, non-attached. So it's like no bullshit, generous, and introverted, which feels like a big relief for my system. And when you said, you can either have one that ups you a bit, but for me as a 7, I really love that down and in feeling of I am happiest when I'm calm and centered. So these 3 types really appeal to me. And there's a particular situation that I'm in at the moment. It's potentially very conflictual. And having this no bullshit, incredibly open-hearted and generous and helpful and kind, but at the same time, I'm introverted. I can be in myself. And then the symbol that came up, the spirit animal to go with it, is like a black leopard, which is, for me, I don't know if this is true, but kind of a solitary animal and very powerful. And the animal was saying to me, do what you want. So not allowing anyone to control me, which is the risk of the situation. Just saying, do what you want, follow me. And I just felt the sense of easing into my power, but with a soft heart. So it was a really cool exercise. Thank you. I don't know if you want to add anything
Thank
to
you for embracing.
yours, Rob, like anything of yours that you want to give more of the somatic, the things it said or anything like that.
I was connecting with a client that I'd worked with a couple of years ago who was actually a 368 justice fighter. So I had an image of that client, and I was getting the energy of that client, and their flavor as a person, as a human being, and this idea, this strong, this. So I don't like the notion of fighter. I'm a type 9. So that's interesting for me to kind of connect with. But there is something there, and there is something there that for me to fight for, and there's a healthy aspect of fighting, which is there's a bit of a challenge there for me, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
The dominant 9.
Really
And
great.
I am very called to justice around
Yeah.
the earth, particularly at the moment. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of imagery. There was a lot of imagery and energetics coming up around that as well, as well as some conflict.
Wonderful. That's so lovely. And also, I guess, might be helpful to, when we go away from the session, to reflect on, if we were standing on the mat, what relationship do we already have to those archetypes? And do we have them on our lines? Do we have them? Where are they? And what is the pathway to them? That's what I was thinking, like as a 9, you have 3 and you have 6 and you have the 8 wing. So what is in your being wanting to maybe hold the polarity or access that 8 wing? Like for me, if I think 8 to 5, I've got the 8 here, I've got the line to 5. The 2 is way across there, and I've always kind of felt like 2s are on the other side of the planet. But now I feel like, no, I want that. I need that. How do I get there? I have to go to 5, then I have to go to 8. Oh, my 8 wing is a pathway to 2, the high end of 2. Like I've got a super highway to 2, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? From 9 actually which is on the triangle, there isn't that much of a difference to 836.
No.
Over that way.
No. So I just want to say, Sam's got to go. Sam, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I'm so grateful. And everybody, remember the Soul Shed. Google Sam, the Soul Shed, Samantha Taroni, and book us time with her. Do it.
Thanks for the session. Thanks, guys.
Cha cha, Sam. Thank you. Now, Rob, anything you want to say before we stop the recording? There's so much here.
I know it is fascinating, isn't it? Just from a personal and a professional perspective, and I think there's a lot to TriType, and there's a lot to we speak a lot, don't we, Ingrid, about getting away from the dominance of type and the typology, it's a great way into Enneagram, but if
Previous.
baby steps, and then
Yeah,
once beyond that, it's getting into understanding the whole system as a unified system.
exactly. I don't
And I
know if
think,
you have a few more minutes. Do you have a little bit of time?
yeah, just a few.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Sorry I interrupted you, Rob. Can you finish what your thought was?
Oh, just about the types and about the symbol. We speak about the symbol a lot.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so looking at the whole system, that's what the Enneagram is all about. And as soon as anyone who's new to Enneagram, or you're working with Enneagram, as soon as you can move into the system and see it as a whole system approach, then that's the next step on the journey. That's a big
Yes.
step on the journey.
And that's actually for me the essential starting point is when I debrief someone's report, I say, okay, so before we go anywhere, let's consider the Enneagram model of personhood, because we've got a certain model of personhood, same as every psychological model does. And the model is we've got this thing going on here, and we've got a body. And within each of them, we've got a certain style. That's the Enneagram for you. There's the menu of what's going on with the Enneagram. And then they're the instincts. So when I debrief a report, I say, this is the model, and I'm going to talk you through what came out in your report, and you're under absolutely no obligation to believe it. So please don't feel pressurized. But see, it's like, does this sound like your way of thinking and how different it is from others? Like 7, do you find that you think very fast, you join dots, and you leave people in the dust in terms of how fast your brain leaps ahead? And do you notice that people are looking at you like you're from another planet? So no matter what other types they have in their TriType, or even if their main type is a type 2, but they've got a lot of 7 in their thinking style, I say, do you notice that this is how your brain works and other people do not think like this? That other people say, whoa, that's never going to work if they're a 6. And if they're a 5, they're thinking, you're winging it. This is complete bullshit. So, and they love that in the debrief because it's like, yes. And then we go to the heart center. Have you noticed that you're so different from these kind of people and these kind of people? And you're giving them access to the whole system in 1 hour. And then when they go to their team session, they're like, they're ready to engage with people and understand that those people have a different preoccupation. So I find that super helpful.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just bringing the whole system to life is so helpful for clients.
absolutely.
And as practitioners, that's a big part of our job.
Exactly. I think that is, for me, a big part of it is let me build rapport with the system as well. Like there's building rapport with myself, there's building rapport with themselves, like them and themselves, and then there's building rapport with the Enneagram. So this is an exercise I like to do with people in a corporate team setting, is I say, pick one from here. It sounds like you relate to the 3 top ones, which are like the higher qualities and the strengths. And then the last one is like eep, the shadow side, and giving them complete normalization. Is like if you relate to the top 3, likely you've discovered the shadow side, and that causes you trouble. So say, okay, let's look at the one you chose for the head center. How does it serve you in your career? How has it in the past diserved you? Even if it was 20 years ago for 1 hour, we're not trying to give you open heart surgery and expose you, but reflect on how's this thing had a shadow side. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Oops. And then the heart center, the same thing, and then the gut center. And they don't even need to say, this is my main type. We don't go into the vice and the fixation necessarily in the first session, but we start exploring that there are things that serve and disserve, and that we can find them in these 3: way of thinking, way of relating, way of doing. And then getting them into pairs to talk about what they chose, and to then talk about the next type in a different group. And they end up knowing a lot about each other. And they definitely walk away with a minimum knowledge of 3 different ways of seeing the world. And I find that It creates a lot of team cohesion, a lot of empathy and compassion. They joke about it, and knowing that TriFix doesn't do any harm whatsoever. So when people want to have a bit of a conniption about whether or not it exists, I'm like, it doesn't matter whether it exists or not, because the conversation that emerges from exploring it has such intrinsic value that, yeah,
Is it helpful or is it not helpful? Is it real or not real? Who can
yeah,
say? That's not the
exactly.
point of any of this.
Yeah,
The point is there a helpful angle? Is there a helpful aspect to it? Can it help a client see themselves and their colleagues with a bit more softness, a bit more kindness, a bit more acceptance?
100%. Yeah, that reminds me of that shamanic principle that truth is effectiveness. Truth is
Yeah,
what works.
yeah,
Truth is what works. Truth is helpful. It's a much more embodied and embedded view of truth. Like we can't know for sure. We don't even know if the Enneagram, anything about the Enneagram is true. It's a model.
yeah.
Um,
It's a model.
so the map is not the territory, and in shamanic wisdom, the territory is where we look for truth. And I hear like what you're saying, compassion, the kindness, that's the purpose.
Yeah. And what works from a coaching perspective is being able to spot some of these patterns. Like if I'm working with a client who's got 9 in their trifix, whatever other pattern is their dominant pattern, or you were going to see through exploration with the client that they're going to have problems with action. They're going to have problems with actually delivering or doing whatever they need to do. So there's some 9 work to be done there about just practicalities of, okay, so what needs to be done?
100%. And I've definitely found like going into a coaching space, a therapeutic space, and saying, I'm really struggling with feeling like I've got a grip on actuality and getting things done and getting traction with the things I want to do in this life. And I find that when I have to do something administrative or pragmatic, I feel this fog coming over me. Guess
Yeah.
what? It's my 9.
Yeah.
Yes, there's 7 ways of getting away from that feeling, but fundamentally it's this feeling of a lack of self-efficacy and lameness and wanting to withdraw and procrastinate because I feel intimidated by existing. Like that's pretty damn 9. That doesn't sound very much like 7 to me. So working with that archetype, working with it, and then seeing, okay, what can we do to find agency and power? What ways are they? So thank you for that. It's so true. So true. And for you, I don't know if you've got a moment to comment on the other aspects of your tri-type or anything that you've had to work with in your tri-type as one of the things influencing your life in a way that you've recognized, okay, this is something I'm grappling with.
Yeah, so I identify with tri-type 9 with 5 and 2, 9 with a strong 5 and a 2, which gives me 2 double aspects. So I've got the double withdrawn of a 9 and a 5, and I've got the double positive outlook of a 9 and a 2. So that really helps me understand my own flavor of 9 and what my
Yes.
experience of 9 is. Yeah, I have a heady version of 9. I'm going to retreat into my cave, given half a chance, into my castle and do my stuff, my intellectual stuff, to as a strategy for staying comfortable and not engaging with the world around me. And I'm going to be focused on externally on other people's needs and give people the benefit of the doubt.
Amazing. Yeah, and there's also a double rejection in there, the 2 and the 5.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
if I were working with a 925 person, it's okay. So you're oriented towards maintaining connection with the 9 object relations, a connection type, then you're going to sacrifice your needs with the 2. And 5's also very disconnected from allowing themselves to have needs, which is why they isolate. So how are these 3 things going to combine to inhibit your ability to step forward into life and do your project? Like, 2 struggle with that false valuation thing is, what is my project that I want to do? 9, similar thing. What is my life calling, my purpose, my power, my role to play in this world? And then 5's, okay, once I know that thing, how do I actually do it? How do I move into life and not like have to get 10 PhDs before I try?
Yeah.
Like being able to not be the most knowledgeable person on the planet before you put something out there.
Yeah. And yeah, so that really aligns with my experience of 9, and I see other 9s that have got different manifestations of 9.
Absolutely.
One of the big selling points for TriType for me was reading Catherine Fover's descriptions. So 952 is the problem solver.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what I love to do. And again, your type in the room, there's a tendency for me as coach to want to be problem solving through information from the type 5. So not bringing any value judgment to that, but being aware as a coach that I might be tempted to go down that route, and to make a conscious judgment in the moment of whether or not that's the right route to go down with the client.
Absolutely. That type in the room question of TriType also, it's like, what am I doing in the room where my TriType is running the show? So for me, the danger of my TriType as a 947 is magical thinking.
Yeah.
And I really notice myself doing it. It's like, don't worry, the Archangel Michael is going to sort this out. You just have to do a spell. And, it's like, if I let my type run the show, it's off into La La Land with the fairies. And if I do that with a self-praise 135 client or a self-praise 835, they're going to think I'm on mushrooms. And not that that's a bad thing necessarily, but to be aware that to build rapport with that client, I can't just keep doing my type as though it's the way, So I've also encountered that, and really, like, if I do get a self-praise 126, like meeting them. And if I get a self-praise 692, like triple people orientation, when they come into the room and I've got their report and they come out like self-praise 692, it's like warmth and kindness and sweetness and people orientation and taking some time. How's your day? How are you feeling about the Enneagram? How was it for you to do the test? Taking time with them to establish connection and show I'm really not threatening. I'm not an expert. I'm just here with you. And if it's a self-praise 837 or any type of 837, is like, let's get to the point. As they walk in, I'm like, okay, cool. What are your expectations for the session? What would you like to get out of it? And then I say, well, we might be able to get through this in 40 minutes instead of an hour if you want to focus on particular things, like just matching their energy of their TriType. And I find that establishes rapport very quickly. And even in my energy, like, okay, 837, I'm guessing you might want to hear things like they are, and for me to get straight to the point. The Enneagram says you're triple assertive. I don't know if you agree, but I'm guessing that you want a no bullshit approach to this thing. And they say, yes, please. I've done so many of these things. I'm so fucking sick of these tests. I don't even know why we have to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get you. So it's like validating the client's worldview before going into some of the things that, might be keys for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. I mean, I'm going to put our contact details in the comments part of the YouTube. And if anyone wants to get hold of us, go for it. We'd love to connect and
Got Authentic Life, and the big new, exciting news is I've also got a new Substack, Pesedjet, which is where I'll be sharing my information about Egyptian symbology and the Enneagram.
very, very freaking exciting. Your Substack under your name.
It's called Pesedjet, Pesedjet.
Won't you just repeat that spelling slowly? I would have missed it if I didn't know it.
Pesedjet.
Thank you.
That is the Egyptian word for 9, which is like a magical number. And what I'm doing in the first few posts is unpacking the Egyptian word for 9.
Be prepared.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah. Cross the threshold into that world. There's no going back. Thank you, Rob. That's awesome. So yeah, get in touch, connect. If you want to get the slides, send an email, can have a chat. And yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And subscribe if you want to get notifications of when I upload other cool things. And yeah, hope to connect.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.